Good afternoon, everyone. Gareth Presh, founder, CEO of the World Health Innovation Summit and CEO of the Global Social Prescribing Alliance. Welcome to the last session. This is going to be around digital health. We're going to be talking about social prescribing, scaling, AI agents, the future. Joined by amazing colleagues here and friends who are pioneering the future, actually creating the future. That's what I would say. And let's start with a short round of introductions. Also, please, if you have questions or if you wish to also share where you're dialing in from or joining from, please pop them in the chat. This is our last session. We'll be finishing in about 45 minutes, but sit back and enjoy. Let's start. Ladies first. Linda, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you. I have to also say that Linda was one of the very first pioneers with myself who did WHIS in Blackpool and Flight Coast. So Linda, over to yourself.
Thank you, Gareth. It's a real privilege to be here and to be back in the WHIS fold. So my name is Linda Vernon. I currently work for NHS England in the UK. I was a musculoskeletal physio for 20 plus years before moving into the world of digital health, which is where I work at the moment. And I'll chat a bit more about some of that work shortly.
Thanks a million, Linda. Laura Lee, ladies first.
Yes, hello, my name is Laura Lee Martin. I'm the CEO of United Share. I'm a proud European located here in Cologne, Germany, and we are building more or less the national sovereign AI for social prescribing.
Wow, that's it. Absolutely. Christian, also from Germany.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Christian Hildebrand. I represent Scalar 10. And we want to surface AI that really serves human development and each and every individual. That is currently not necessarily the case. And so I would like to quickly point out that on the 11th September, we will dig very deep into this topic about how AI can serve social prescribing practitioners. And so please find the link to contact us on our website, scalar10.com, so that we can really enter this process together.
Thanks a million. And Leffertus?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lefteris. I'm a designer. I'm an educator, and I'm a podcaster. I'm also the founder of the New Art School, which is a very new way of forming design education, of course, combining the old and the new into something that's very much needed, especially around visual literacy and AI, which is a very hot issue right now.
Thanks, Angus. And then I'll come to John.
Hi, my name is obviously Angus Cameron, and I am co-founder of Utiboo. I come from a 30-year career in the film industry, and after sleeping on the sofa way too many times in the office, decided it was time to try something different, and ended up working with children on a community project, and that was a foundation stone for what Utiboo is today, which is real-life learning for children.
Fantastic. And John?
Hi, everyone. My name is John Naslund. I'm based here in Boston at Harvard Medical School. I'm a researcher and epidemiologist by training and lead a program of research focused on mental health services research and really thinking of innovative ways to leverage technology to scale up access to mental health care in underserved settings. So look forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. What a round of introductions. And this is what pioneering, bringing collaborations together and bringing different dynamics, different, shall we say, perspectives, so that we can really get our energies fired up for a session in terms of innovation. Let me just start. Maybe Linda, you could maybe give some context from your perspective, because you're in the midst of quite a difficult, shall we say, health services under a lot of pressure. You're looking for new innovations. Maybe explain what that looks like.
Yeah, so thanks, Gareth. And I suppose I'd like to give a little bit of a professional and then maybe a bit of personal anecdotal insight as well, really. So from a work perspective, I started my career 30 years ago this month as a physiotherapist, and we were talking about prevention back then. We were signposting people to services in their community. It wasn't called social prescribing at the time, but we were kind of doing it in a bit of a random, haphazard way. And I started to look into the whole personalised care agenda and how we could, as digital transformation leads, how we could enable the social prescribing agenda to move at a faster pace, and what they might need to make that happen. The work that I have been closest involved in, and it's probably quite timely that I'm the one leading or starting the conversation today, because everybody's thinking about AI and how do we enable access to healthcare that's more equitable and more easy to access through AI as an enabler. But of course, AI has to be developed on top of really good data architecture. So we need sound data, that's high quality data, that's complete data, in order for AI to be able to do its thing. So the work that I have been involved in professionally is looking at how we can improve the way we deliver directories of services, which is kind of, it's the foundation, but it's actually one of the biggest challenges across healthcare, to think about how do we create directories that are robust, up-to-date, accurate information, so that either, my parents as citizens, or my peers, or professionals, whether that be healthcare professionals or some of our let's say our police force, our education leads, my children at school have been signposted to services to support their well-being, but there is never usually a single version of the truth for that data. So I sit on the Open Referral UK advisory group, the UK's national advisory group, and what we are doing is promoting a data standard that allows data to be captured in alignment with a schema, so that the data becomes standardized, which means we can share that data in multiple different through multiple different digital front doors. And that might be in the UK, all citizens are able to access the NHS app as their access route into healthcare. Well, what we'd like to do is surface some of this data in a way that people can then access services beyond healthcare. We all know, I think probably around the year I graduated, if not before, we started talking about wider determinants of health, and people really now say, well, they're the core determinants of health. Education, employability, your home and housing situation. These things are actually really much more part of the contribution to health outcomes than the healthcare that we provide. So how do we support our populations to access those services, knowing that the data and information will be up to date? And so I think it's really, I thought we're talking about partnerships. I think we have to recognize that social prescribing as a term that originated, I think, about 10 years ago. But as a concept, it is everyone's business. We've heard of some brilliant stories about a local barber's shop that is the person, the person who signposts people in their community to support and services. So how do we enable people, regardless of their profession, their discipline, or whether they are a citizen trying to find information, to access that information in a timely way? So I think we need to start thinking about this foundational, sort of using data standards as a core requirement when we're developing platforms and systems that enable people to access care and support. Open Referral UK is the UK version of an international data standard. So this is available internationally. Open Referral, you can Google it and find all the information you like. There's lots of case studies on the UK website, of which we've contributed to as well. And then I wanted to speak briefly about a personal anecdote, because we've talked since I graduated about biopsychosocial models of care, thinking about people in a holistic way and trying to support all the needs of an individual. I think it's as much biopsychosocio-spiritual care and support that people need. I think that's the model that resonates for me. And this was just over a year ago. I spent some time in India with a charity that supports people in their communities. And what was visibly different to the care that I see VCFSE organisations in the UK, voluntary community, faith and social enterprise organisations in the UK, was that each project, this charity is called Manav Sadhana, and they offer around 40 different projects per year, but every project was holistic. So there were projects that were mainly aimed towards educating young people from the slum communities in Ahmedabad. But actually the education was brought alongside health awareness and nutritional support, and they were given entrepreneurial skills. They were taught to make things and then taught how to sell them, and then they were taught to go back home to their parents and families and give that support and education and information to their parents and peers as well. And I saw things like the woman from the slum communities in Ahmedabad being brought together to create a recycling industry for waste. So household waste that's often found on the streets in Ahmedabad being gathered by women in the dark of night when the temperatures were manageable. But then they were also being given care and love and support and nutrition as part of their job. And they were given support with domestic abuse at home, and then their families were given support. And I think we really need to, it touched my heart to see that these people were being looked at and supported and engaged, and they were co-designing, but in a truly holistic way. And I think there's something about how do we break down these silos of thinking that this is education's business, or this is health's business, or this is an employer's right. It's actually about how do we break that down and do it as a collective in as holistic a way as possible. So I'll pause there. Loads of other people to chip in.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring thanks, Linda, for sharing that. And I think it's important. We'll go to Angus, because I think breaking down the barriers has to become creative. And I want Angus to share the sort of creative side, the work that he's been doing, which is just incredible. Angus, over to yourself, and it's very holistic.
Thank you, Gareth. I'm actually going to start with a personal anecdote. So at 12:30 yesterday morning, I had to call for an ambulance. My wife wasn't well. Waited 2 hours for an ambulance. And then we were in A&E for 14 hours. And at the end of the process, we needed to have a CT scan. But unfortunately, with only one CT scanner and my wife not being the highest priority, we were unable to do that. She came home. We actually are still waiting for that scan. And I think it was just obviously just curious timing, but it really sort of reiterates, I think, the importance of social prescribing. Anything that can help to take the pressure off the health system is hugely important. And obviously, I've just experienced that firsthand. And with all the limitations, I mean, the hospital was actually on a divert for A&E because they were just so full. But I think the one thing that came from it, the staff was so professional, they were so good, and that helps to balance that out. But it's just, they are overstretched, and anything we can do to help that is important. Coming to the world of Utiboo, it is about creativity. It began as championing creativity, but has evolved. It's evolved very much into real life learning, and we target primary school children. That's our primary focus as such, and we develop projects around everything from financial literacy to healthy eating, to a project about soil nutrition, which we're doing at the moment. But the idea is to equip children with core real life skills, which range from creativity through to emotional resilience, skills including oracy and listening, all of these elements that are absolutely key to help them in what is a very, very uncertain future. And for the types of projects that we've dealt with, ironically, one of our first large project was actually, for those in the UK who will know, with Ant and Dec, related to a book that they had written about called Proper Happy. And we did a project about what makes you feel happy. And we did this to children, but also to adults. And it was very interesting that with the data that we collected on this, and reassuring that the elements that the kids especially most resonated with were family, were pets, were friends. It wasn't video games. Video games and TV were quite high, but it wasn't at the top. So that itself was useful. And to be able to use creativity in a project like this to engage the youth in a fun way, I think is really important. And that's very much what we are about, fun learning. As well as the real life learning projects we do, we also do creative activities and craft competitions. And just a couple of examples for you. So we had lots of entries coming in for one of our activities from one girl specifically. And we were in email conversation with her grandparents. It was the grandparents who had submitted her entries. And the grandparent mentioned that their granddaughter had had a very tough upbringing and had moved in with them because of a very disruptive family environment. And for her, these activities were really important because they were her escape, her creative escape. And that really resonated. That was really the first of a string of these sort of feedback that we got from the work that we do. A second conversation with a parent related to, again, someone who sent in, a boy who had sent in several entries. And they'd come back and they'd mentioned that, and they thanked us. And they thanked us because their son suffered from ADHD and had found that these activities were giving their child focus and calming them. And they found it hugely valuable. Ironically, that through the judging for the competition, that boy did win a prize, which felt especially important, I think, in that process. And the third, we did a project very, very early on to do with painting pebbles, thousands and thousands of pebbles. And we got the community involved, and that was school children and also the wider community, all to do with a specific art installation where it enabled anyone with any ability, you did not have to be an artist, but to be part of an art installation. And it was something that was placed on the beach. We've got a pebble beach very nearby, an installation that was there for many months. And we had one adult that came in on multiple occasions. We had a space in one of the shops in the high street that we were painting, and they came in several times, and I've got talking to that individual. And they started to explain that they had been suffering from a medical condition, and they were in rehabilitation. And they felt so housebound that this became an opportunity for them to get out into the environment, meet people, just random people to chat. They weren't particularly an extroverted either way, but because they were focusing on the activity, that broke down the barrier to enable them to converse. And because of that shared goal, that shared result of what they were doing, they felt more comfortable within that. And these are just a few examples. And they're really important to us because what we do as a community interest company is a challenge as a nonprofit. And it's not easy within the education field. So every one of these little examples really give us the energy to continue our battle. And I really see the potential of what we do. I think it's quite untapped. I think that what we need to do is to connect the right networks, the right organizations to build on scale. And that is something that I think we've now got enough proof and evidence in what we do. I think it's the fact that with an ever-changing world, the world of AI, the need for people to communicate, the need to people to have to be able to have tangible, practical activities to engage with, I think is hugely important. And I think that sort of tactile approach is something that we are very focused on in that way. So yeah, I think that hopefully gives you a little sense of what we do.
Thanks a million, Angus. I hope your wife is in recovery, and
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the insights there into the important work. And I hope people can understand that you've got to match the digital need with human creativity. Like that's we can't ignore. We have to look to the future and value the work that Angus is doing, because that is the future. We're going to value creativity as that's going to become more valuable as AI steps in, replaces. So let me just go to Leftis next, and you can give an insight into education, the future of education, and then we'll have John as well, who'll be able to give a real insight also into the sort of work globally that's going on in this space.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm going to speak today from the perspective of the New Art School and Design Education Talks podcasts, two connected projects concerned with the future of design education and the contribution designers can make to society. The New Art School was founded in 2009 around the very simple belief that education should not merely prepare students to operate software, produce attractive outcomes, or just respond to commercial briefs. It should really help them to become observant, independent, responsible, and capable of contributing meaningfully to the world. A bit later, while I was researching more and doing more work, I created Design Education Talks podcast in 2019. And this has continued the inquiry into this, more than 120 conversations internationally with designers, educators, researchers, artists, and school founders internationally. So today I want to connect this work to health, because of course we're in a health forum. Beginning with an urgent proposition, is that we shouldn't begin with illness on the future of health. So for too long, we've organized health systems around the moment when something has already gone wrong. We wait for the symptoms, diagnosis, and crisis. We wait until people are exhausted, isolated, anxious, or unable to continue. Only then do we activate the full machinery of care. Of course, treatment matters, hospitals matter, clinical expertise matters. The NHS, of course, matters profoundly. But when systems are designed primarily around illness, they're always arriving late. They are preparing what has already been, they are trying to repair what has already been damaged. So the shift we now need is from illness to health, from response to prevention, and from crisis management to creating the conditions in which people can flourish before the breakdown occurs. And the same principle really applies to education. Many of the challenges we're facing every day in higher education begin much earlier in childhood. Across the United Kingdom and many other countries around the world, children have limited or unequal access to art and design education. This is very important, is that the arts are being cut, creativity is being cut. So creative subjects have been reduced, marginalized, or treated as optional additions rather than essential part of human development and the curriculum. The consequences do not suddenly appear when students enter university. They accumulate over many years. So when children are not given regular opportunities to draw, to make, to observe, to imagine, to experiment and work with materials, they may reach higher education without confidence in their own ideas. They may struggle to take creative risks, develop visual judgment, tolerate uncertainty, or understand process as a form of thinking. Universities then, very late in the process, are expected to repair in 3 or 4 years what should have been cultivated throughout their childhood. This is educational crisis management. It is the equivalent of waiting for illness before beginning to care for health. Preventive education means giving children access to creative practice early, consistently, and equitably. Art and design helps children develop attention, coordination, curiosity, emotional expression, problem solving, and the ability to understand the world through more than 2 words and numbers. These are not secondary skills. They are foundations for learning, confidence, and participation. In this sense, art and design education and preventive medicine share an important principle. Early intervention is more humane, more effective, and less costly than repairing the damage later. Many Eastern traditions, including Chinese traditional medicine, have understood health not simply as the absence of disease, but as the cultivation of balance, vitality, and harmony. The ideal physician was not only someone who treated illness, but someone who helped prevent it from arising. These preventive tasks ask us to pay attention earlier to food, movement, rest, emotion, environment, relationships, and the subtle signs that something is becoming imbalanced. It reminds us that health is cultivated throughout daily life, culture, education, behavior, and environment. Prevention is therefore not only a medical challenge, it is also a cultural, education, and then, of course, a design challenge. Health is shaped long before a person enters a hospital, speaks to a doctor, or opens a health application. It is shaped by housing, work, food, loneliness, stress, education, community, digital exclusion, and trust. It is shaped by whether people understand their choices, whether systems communicate clearly, and whether they feel empowered early enough to act. This is where design has a powerful role. Design at its best is not a curation, it is a way of seeing relationships and identifying where systems begin to fail. It asks where confusion starts, where trust breaks down, where people become excluded, and where a small intervention could prevent a much larger crisis. Early prevention depends on making health understandable as part of everyday life. It depends on communication, participation, health literacy, digital confidence, and emotional connection. It depends on systems that do not wait for people to fall, but help them remain standing. A digital health system is only empowering when people can use it with confidence, dignity, and trust. Prevention cannot succeed when people are excluded through language, fear, complexity, poverty, age, or disability. At the New Art School, believe design education must prepare students to work in this space. Future designers must learn more than how to create brands, posters, campaigns, applications, and services. They must learn how to work responsibly with human vulnerability. They must listen before producing and design with communities rather than merely for them. The design studio can become a civic laboratory where students, educators, clinicians, and communities investigate real conditions together. Students could work on health literacy, mental well-being, aging, nutrition, movement, digital inclusion, loneliness, and care. But this work must not begin only at university. Creative confidence must be cultivated from the early years onwards. Children need access to art and design, not simply because some may become professional designers, but because creative education helps all people develop agency, judgment, and the confidence to participate in shaping their own lives. This is not about replacing medicine with design. It's about recognizing that medicine cannot create a healthy society alone. The future of prevention requires partnerships between the NHS, local authorities, schools, universities, design studios, artists, technologists, researchers, families, and citizens. We must understand both health and education as investments rather than costs. Investing early means children who can learn more fully, adults who can live and work with dignity, older people who can remain independent, and communities that can become more resilient. Every prevented crisis has a human value. Every person supported early has emotional, social, and economic value. So let's stop designing only for illness and begin to design for health. Let's stop waiting for educational failure and restoring meaningful access to art and design from childhood onwards. Let's invest in prevention, creativity, and human capability before the crisis occurs. And let us teach the next generation of designers that their role is not simply to make things look better, but to help life become more understandable, equitable, and livable. The future of health begins before illness. The future of design education begins before university. And if we're serious about prevention, both must be part of the conversation from the very beginning. So thank you so much.
Yeah, brilliant efforts. A few years ago, I've got to come to John now, but a few years ago, I took part in a seminar in Politecnico di Milano under the Italian government to discuss design and health. And this is exactly a salutogenic approach that you're describing, which I'm sure John and other colleagues can give us a bit of an insight into. It's very important, but the social determinants of health is 80% of our health and well-being, but it's very much neglected. The 20%, which is the pathogenic approach, is a $12 trillion market with nearly 80 million staff. So look at the other opportunities that we have to create millions of new jobs, meaningful jobs, and create good value. So it's enormous. John, as an epidemiologist, I think you're going to love this topic. And please share the fantastic work, which I've got to learn from yourself over the last couple of weeks or a couple of months that we've been working together, and mental health for all.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Yeah, really delighted to be part of this conversation and discussion. And I'll just speak, briefly about the work that I'm involved in, and really just the fundamental challenge that we face globally, really thinking of mental health issues. There's really no country that does a good job at addressing mental health. I think that's one thing when we think of the impact globally, whether it's here in the United States, we certainly have many challenges with our health system, or other really low resourced areas such as India, where I lead a program of research as well. I think one of the key things is the status quo around how we've been treating mental health conditions over the last, 100 years or so. It really is not working. And to think of just dumping more funds and resources into these existing models and expecting different results really is not, it's just not viable. So this is really where shifting our focus to innovative approaches, and there's really been pioneering research over the last 2 to 3 decades demonstrating that effective mental health interventions can be delivered outside of the clinic, can be delivered in community settings, really equipping almost anyone, lay providers, community members, whether this is teachers, whether this is community health workers, equipping these frontline providers with the skills to identify and respond to mental health issues. There's now a significant body of evidence. I always use the analogy that there's probably no condition on earth with this substantial amount of clinical evidence attesting to the effectiveness of these models in community settings, yet with such woefully inadequate adoption and implementation. So that's really the central focus of my research. How do we take these models that we know work? They're not the traditional clinical models. How do we get these into practice and then ensure that they're done effectively? And central to that is the role of technology. There's no way we can do this without technology, whether it's scaling up access to training, ongoing supervision and support, and then methods for tracking outcomes and ensuring quality. And then I know the AI is a key focus of this platform, and I just want to highlight that I think it's incredibly exciting, the potential to leverage AI to support frontline providers. So we think of I really just want to emphasize, I don't see AI as a tool to replace mental health services, to replace these social interventions. And this is really why this idea around social prescribing is so fundamental and central to my work. But I don't see AI as a tool that can replace that. I think there is a fundamental need for a human-to-human connection. But can it augment and improve quality? Can it improve how we develop skills? Can it improve how we improve competencies of people who are working in really under-resourced settings? Absolutely. If you think of a rural setting, whether it's in a rural community in South Texas or whether it's a rural community in rural India, there just simply is not a psychiatrist or psychologist available. And now we've trained someone in that community. We can't expect that there will be a licensed clinician or some other provider who can offer direct support or supervision. So they're leveraging tools to help navigate challenging situations, knowing when someone might need to be referred, knowing how to identify a crisis. I think that's where these digital tools and the use of AI can play a tremendous role in advancing this work. And that's really central to a number of the projects that I'm currently involved in, both here in the United States and globally. So mindful of time, I'll keep my remarks a little short, but just really excited about this conversation and the opportunity to meet all of you.
Thanks a million, John. And also, John and ourselves, we published as part of the Well Futures Alliance today a paper on a position paper with the G20. So, we'll post that in the link as well. So now on to the implementation, how to augment, how to support social prescribing. Laura Lee, I'll hand over to yourself and Christian. And then if you can give us a couple of minutes on sort of the implementation opportunities with AI and the large language and the localized models of AI that you guys are bringing to the fore with ourselves.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for the intro. Before we start, I would love to take you a little bit back. When the internet arrived, we were skeptical. Everybody, it's not a book, it's not true. Remember that? And we questioned everything online. And then time went by and we stopped questioning and we got comfortable. And then came fake news, and we realized maybe we should have kept questioning. And now we have AI. And AI takes it one step further, because with the internet, false information was created by people with bad intentions. When AI, the system itself, create false information, not because it wants to lie, because of how it is built. And this is what we call hallucination. And to give you an idea how bad that is a study published in Nature in 2025 tested AI models in a medical setting. And when asked to provide medical references, up to half of the sources generated completely made up information, not wrong, not outdated, invented. And studies that never existed, authors who never wrote them. So now imagine this in healthcare. A link worker asks AI about medication, and AI gives a confident, well-written answer with a source, but the source does not exist, and everything is invented. So this is a problem we are solving here at United Share, because to explain what we do differently, we do three things. First, we don't guess, we know. Our models do not make up knowledge. They retrieve it from verified, curated sources. Thanks to Linda, you are doing the absolutely great groundwork for that. Clinical guidelines, validated programs, approved protocols. So every answer has a source, and every source has a version, and every version has a timestamp. So if the source does not exist, the model does not answer. Silence over invention. This is very important. Number two, we are engineers, not magicians. Very important. Not everything needs AI. When we process data from wearables, for example, heart rate, sleep, activity, we use proven signal processing, precise, repeatable. We use AI where it adds insights where it's necessary, but we use engineering where we need reliability. So the difference is very important and it matters. Third, we learned from the results, not from the internet. That means most AI systems ask, did the answer sound right? And we ask, did it work? If a recommendation does not lead to the real health improvement, the system learns from that, not from the internet text, from real, concerted, observed outcome. This is very important. So often people ask me, why not just use ChatGPT or Claude or however? And I always try to explain that general AI models are built to sound right. Their purpose is a totally different one. So they are not built to be right. And they predict the next word based on probability. So it's more or less a mathematical problem, yeah? There's no fact-checking inside and no reference layers. So there's no ground truth, and the architecture itself cannot tell the difference. So, for example, you would not ask a general practitioner to perform heart surgery no matter how many textbooks he has read. So the same applies to AI. General models do not belong in healthcare decisions. So what is the solution? We need an AI system where trust is not required because verification is built in, and this is what we do. Here in this panel, we see we partnered with Scala 10 and WHIS, and they bring the expert ecosystem and the trusted knowledge. This is our source of truth, and this is very important that the data is really reliable, and we have also the human in the loop. And I totally agree to John that I believe AI is not the solution for everything. It's always human, machine, human at the end that needs to solve our problems. So I'm looking forward. The future is bright. Together we build the national sovereign AI, and I'm really excited about the next steps and what's coming up. So I'm happy to hand over.
Thanks a million. Christian, you're on mute. Hold on. There you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hey, thanks to everyone today. I mean, I have this amazing spot now, the last 5 minutes of the day. So I think I'm going to change entirely what I wanted to talk about and actually summarize that. I think what John said and what Laura Lee just said gave this clear overview already about why AI can help and how it needs to be technically constructed to actually serve the need. And so what I would like to say is that I, my colleagues, and we together are now able to really bring everybody into this to create that specific model. And in this case, we're talking about an AI model. It's not a health model, yeah, just to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about. So we need this really good data, and that's why I'm here and my colleagues are here to start gathering the needs of the community and to work on forming this specific model that then can be delivered in several countries to several types of practitioners on the ground, and that really is it can become a reliable partner. So I think I want to talk about bridging that gap, and I want to talk about how to not be worried about AI. John is completely right that AI does not replace, specifically in this field now. It can support, it can be a great knowledge sharing tool. It's a new form of communication, of how data can be communicated to a broader audience, can be up to date, better than just using search engines. It's a new paradigm that we can really bring to life in this specific context. And I think that's why I'm very excited about this specific context, because health prevention is logically the most important thing that we can think about. And so my motivation is to really help the community and bring the community together in order to shape this. And so I mentioned earlier about our special interest group. Maybe Gareth, you would want to close the session today. I give it over to you, because
Yep.
I don't want to repeat myself.
No, thanks, Dominion. No, and I want to also just, we've got 2.5 minutes, so I want to quickly give everyone a bit of a final word. We'll keep it nice and short, 5 words each, say 5 to 10 words each. But thanks for that. And also, as you mentioned, the special interest groups that we have with social prescribing, we have one on Monday, so people are very welcome to join that. That's around the work we're doing, happiness, creativity in Europe. But then in September, we have a special interest group around AI and digital health. So you're more than welcome to join us. We'll post about that. But let me go back to Linda quickly. Linda, I know you'll be able to summarize this very quickly. Just your final thoughts. Or have you frozen? I think you're frozen. Angus, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I've got to be quick here. Yes, I think from my point of view, I think the challenge with AI and the post-truth world that we are starting to live in is that from the children's perspective is how do you create an environment that they can believe in, that they have hope in, and that they feel they can be invested in. And I think that's what anyone involved in AI has to think very carefully about.
Absolutely. Linda, you back?
I'm back. Yeah, I just got lost. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, super. Yeah, so there was a recent study from King's College London. 1 in 10 people reviewed had used a large language model as an alternative to seeking support from their GP. So I think I'd just echo what we just heard there around the almost the safeguards that need to be put in place for our public. AI is a massive enabler, but it also has the potential to mislead. I've heard some interesting stories in the last few days about people being misled around health decisions and things. So yeah.
Brilliant. Leffertus.
We have to apply what we know. This is the most important. We have to apply and then adjust. But after we apply, there's too much talk going on and not enough application.
Absolutely. Let me go to Laura Lee.
Yeah, I believe every data in healthcare needs to be stored national-wise, and we all need national AI systems for those data to be secured.
Okay, brilliant. Christian, last word, and then John.
But given this is like a technological panel, I think for me the last word is that we must not fear AI, and we must create it ourselves. It's in our hands. We can use this technology, and we will do that successfully.
John.
Great, thank you. I would just emphasize that the success of these tools will rely on how they can be adopted and used in different community settings. And I think that really requires an emphasis on co-design and engagement of the target settings. So you may have a tool and an idea and how it could work, but if you don't work with the target population that you plan on using it with and make sure that they're at the table with making the decisions on how it will be used, I don't see it being successful. So I think that's fundamental. Engaging, your target user groups, your community members, whoever they may be, making sure they're part of the discussion on how these tools will be used.
Yeah, I love that. It goes back to the principles we discussed this morning when we set up the Global Social Prescribing Alliance. Myself and James, we sat down, we said that this has to be inclusive, that this platform has to be for everyone. We have to bring everyone to the table. Linda knows that from day one when we started the work that we started from the outset, it was always about the community. It was always about co-designing and making sure everyone had a voice and was listened to. It's the only way it works. So look, for myself and colleagues today, this has been a wonderful event. Just to let you know, we have next year's event date in the diary. But between now and then, there's going to be a lot of activity because Global Social Prescribing Alliance, we've got our special interest groups. We've got our programs up and running. Myself, John, other colleagues, Laura Lee, we're working on the AI, the digital implementation, and we've got social prescribing implementation growing all over the world at the moment. So there's going to be a lot more activity and action. And as we said throughout the day's sessions, we want to move from talk to action and implementation. So that's what we're going to do. This group that you've witnessed here today are full of motivation. And they have the why. Why are we doing it? Because we recognize the need and we want to help people. That's the purpose behind what we're doing. So let's crack on with it. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll resurface on Monday, and we'll be full of energy and ready to go again. So thanks to my speakers. It's been a fabulous day, and thanks for tuning in. Talk soon, everyone.